international press review now. We're going to start looking at the Palestinian bid for statehood at the UN then, and you're looking at the Lebanese paper, in fact.
Yeah, let's have a look first at the French-language Lebanese paper L'Orient Le Jour, which kind of sums up quite well the reaction across the Arab world. They say that every nation in the world now has a historic chance this week to fulfil their responsibility towards the Palestinians. They say that what's happened to the Palestinians across decades is the original sin that can be found at the root of most of the unrest in the Middle East, and indeed they call it the fundamental cause of Islamic terrorism and of the malaise around the Muslim world which produced Al-Qaeda. And they say that every country in the UN has a historic chance now, just this week, to help undo some of that wrong that they believe was done the Palestinians over recent decades. They say the Palestinians have been humiliated over and over again by well-meaning projects like Camp David and Oslo, which in the end collapsed through a mix of what they call American clientelism to Israel and Israeli stubbornness and intransigence. And they say creating an observer state status for the Palestinians just isn't good enough. They need to be recognised as a full state. They've been waiting for this for a long time, and the countries of the UN have to take that historic chance. That isn't necessarily what the Palestinians themselves think, though. The Washington Post, let's have a look at them. They've actually been to some of the contested territories of the West Bank and spoken to actual Palestinians who, some of them support the UN bid, some of them are against it, but they overall are pretty pessimistic about whether or not it can actually change their own lives. They say that, well, yes, it might give them a moral boost, but there's still going to be borders, there's still going to be checkpoints, there's still going to be that wall, whatever is decided in New York. That's what they all tell the Washington Post. Israel is, of course, extremely worried about the possibility of hundreds and thousands of Palestinian demonstrators descending on those checkpoints in order to demonstrate about whatever is going to happen in New York. But the people the Washington Post's correspondents meet in the West Bank don't really seem they don't really seem to have enough faith in the possible UN process to actually get out onto those streets and demonstrate. The piece does point out that Israel's preparations seem to be a little bit on the aggressive side. They're stockpiling stun grenades, tear gas and water cannon, and they say that if all of these weapons that are being stockpiled are used against Palestinians, and particularly if any are killed, then that could be the spark which could set off major unrest. But at the moment, the Palestinians just seem resigned to their situation, and they don't really seem to have that drive that might push them out onto the streets.
More resignation in the next story you're looking at. It's the Eurozone crisis, the Greek crisis, of course, so quite rightly. Elena's gone to the Greek papers. What are they saying?
I have. Let's have a look at the left-leaning paper To Vima. Now, they've got what they say is exclusive information about the austerity plan that's currently being discussed by the Greek government, which they have to pass in order to persuade their creditors to release the next 8 billion euros of financial help. Now, Greece is really on the brink, To Vima points out. If they don't get those 8 billion euros, they may be unable to pay public servants by the end of this month. And they say the exclusive information that the paper has is that 100,000 public servants will lose their jobs and millions more will be reduced to earning the minimum wage. Now, the paper says that just proves that the government is playing only to its creditors. They say they want a fresh election because the Greeks have just had too much and it's not democratic to force that on them. But if we can have a quick look at another perspective on the economic crisis in The Guardian, they say it actually goes far beyond what's happening in Greece, that it's a crisis of the whole of capitalism. Will Hutton says in the paper, he's quite a left-wing thinker, but nevertheless his viewpoint is interesting. He says that unless we accept that the way that we've run and managed capitalism for the last 30 years is in crisis, and not just the euro, then we won't be able to do anything about the current problem. They say the existence of the euro has actually helped shore up Europe's economies against a collapse sparked by the 2008 financial crisis. But what really needs to happen now is that governments need to separate retail and commercial banking and realise that it just was never sustainable to build a whole edifice of finance on a very small amount of actual capital below. They say unless the bankers stop gambling, there's nothing we can do.
And really, really quickly, we're just going to mention something about Martin McGuinness, currently Deputy First Minister in Northern Ireland. He's running for President in the South.
You know, that sparked a fair amount of outrage. Let's have a look at the Irish Independent, which is a well-known anti-Republican paper, but is nevertheless representative of a view that's common among a certain constituency of voters in the south of Ireland. They say that unless McGuinness explains his past, he was, of course, a senior leader in the IRA and has admitted being second in command in Derry at the time of Bloody Sunday. They say there's still murky holes in his past, and unless he clears it up, then they're shocked he has the balls, really, to be running for president in the south.
Well said. All right, Elena, that's Elena here with the international newspapers this morning here on France 24. Headlines once again then, trying to avert a showdown